Hi there, welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And we also believe that you have great power to influence the lives of the people around you, so much so that it changes their lives. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm so happy that you're here and that you're with us. I hope that you're in a fantastic season of your life, no matter when you're listening to this. If you're listening to this as it's coming out, then it is December. It's the beginning of December, and we all know December rushes by and passes by so quickly. I love Christmas so much, and so I have a great desire to share with you and to help ready your heart for Christmas. And because of that, the next 2 episodes will be all about Christmas. We'll be a little bit shifting away from the journal, at least where we're at in the moment. And we're going to shift into some other journal memories and some things about Christmas that will hopefully help ready your heart for the season and for the holiday. So be looking for that. That's up and coming in the next couple of weeks. Also, as part of my gift to you in December, I'm doing a couple of things. So the first thing I did is I recorded a meditation and made that available for all of you last week. If you're following me on Instagram, you probably saw that. If you didn't, you can click the link in the show notes and you can get the meditation. If everyone is loving it, then I want to make meditations more available because it's something I believe in wildly for so many reasons. We can talk about that at a different time. Just know that this is a gift to you, and this is a place where you can just go listen. It's just a Google Drive. It's just a link to a Google Drive. The link will take you to sign up for my email list so that you can continually get all of these meditations and things that I'm offering. But if you're already on my email list, then this will be in your inbox from last week. So watch for it, and please give me feedback. If you love it, I'll make more. Another thing that I wanted to do to offer as a free gift during December is I want to offer free coaching. And so I thought it would be just so fun as a way to connect with you. I have many people that I'm coaching right now, and as we drop in and do our one-on-one sessions, they say that it is so powerful for them. So it's available for you to help you through this holiday season and to help you if you want to have a breakthrough, a mindset shift, if there's anything you need to work on, or you just want to lift your vibration, you just want to raise your energy levels, we can do all of those things. But it helps so much when we can zero in on your life and who you are. And I'm offering a full hour. So find the link in the show notes so that you can sign up for your session. That is just a couple of ways that I am desiring to give back to you as my community during the holiday season. If you are a new listener to this podcast, you might want to know that we are chronologically going through my journal from when I was 15 and pregnant. And the point that we're at in the story, a lot of things have happened. If you want to go back and listen, it's a road of, rocky relationships and going through grief and experiencing a lot of really great life learning lessons where I try to extend the mindset shifts and the things that I have learned as I've gone through my living to you. If you're jumping in for the first time with this episode, welcome. We're so happy that you're here. As far as who is in this episode, it's really just Jane. And if you've been listening, then you know who Jane is. She was a great mentor to me. She was a woman who student taught at the school that I went to when I had my daughter, Taylor. And it was this young parents program. And the way that she served and the person that she was life-altering for me. So let's jump in and talk about Jane. July 2nd, 1995. Jane just returned my phone call. I'm so glad I got to talk to her. She's leaving to Costa Rica for a year on July 24th, and I'm going to miss her so much. She's always been there for me whenever I've needed self-esteem or just to talk or needed advice. No doubt she was always the best person to call. I can't stand the thought of her leaving, even though within the year I probably would not get to see her very much. Anyway, I love her and all that she has done for me and supported me, etc. This woman has helped so many people and given them so much hope. It's amazing. And funny thing is, she probably doesn't even realize it. It's just her and what she does best. Jane, I love you. XOXOXO. Taylor, you're the best. XOXOXO. Oh, I love like revisiting my mind from back, when I was a lot younger. And it's just beautiful to me to look at the influence that Jane was in my life. And if you have been listening along with the episodes, you know that I did a podcast all about Jane, and it was about mentors and the power of a mentor. That was episode 35. If you didn't get a chance to listen to it, it's a good one. Today, I want to focus on influence. I want to focus on the power of our influence. And you know how I said in this entry that Jane probably had no idea that she was influencing other people's lives? I actually, my perspective now is that I pretty much guarantee she knew she was influencing other people's lives. I do know that everyone who tries to be of good influence, we trip, right? We can trip on doubt and, are we really making a difference? And is what I have to give enough for someone, to lift them and to help them? And sometimes those thoughts get in the way so much that it cripples us and it cripples our ability to actually influence someone. And so that's what I really want to break down today. I think it's vital. I think it's really important. And I think it's important to recognize, it through this lens, simply because, yes, Jane was a good influence in my life, but I also look at the time that I spent with Jane, and it wasn't excessive. So I went to school and I saw her often when I was in the alternative high school with Taylor, and I was living in Ogden for 6 months. And then after that, it was really Jane just sharing herself with me incrementally, or like sometimes, right? So sometimes I would visit and sometimes I would call. And the power of her meeting me where I was at, and then being able to continually listen and address and lift and give me ideas about life that I didn't have access to outside of Jane. That's something that's really interesting to look at, because sometimes we have access to ideas that are bigger and that would help people, but we don't think we do. And so we don't share. And so I want to break all of this down. I want to look really at the things, Jane just showed up. She was authentic. She listened. She was a person who gave me ideas versus telling me what to do. She cared, right? She listened. She spoke words of encouragement and belief. And really, I felt to my core that she believed in me. And because she believed in me, I believed in me as well, which is such a cool concept that sometimes we need to lean on others to be able to, come to that point. And I trusted her. So I want to break down all the reasons why all of those things encapsulate our ability to influence other people. To make a difference in someone's life, you don't have to be brilliant, rich, beautiful, or perfect. You just have to care enough and be there. That's all. And it's so important that we have the ability to help others see themselves better than they are until they believe, right? That's within their capability. Influence is truly the ability to decide what you care about, and then to help others understand why you care about that, and to support them on their journey. Influence is not a goal. Instead of it looking at it like a goal, it's simply just what you embody and then what you're able to share because of who you are being. It's interesting to really sit back and think about being aware of the power that we have. And we influence people that we never would have thought we would influence. We influence people by simply casting a look in their direction. From a look, people receive feelings. It's mind-boggling to dive into studies about the mere concept of looking at someone. Studies show that a simple look can leave a receiver with feelings of doubt and discouragement, or of happiness and fulfillment. I think it's interesting to go through your mind and to look at even the presence of another person and the way that it affects you. I have a picture of someone that I crossed paths with years ago at the DMV, and they were whistling a song and walking. And that's all I know of them. But they were so happy. They were exuding positive energy, and I absorbed that. I remember being at a soccer game of one of my boys, maybe 5 years ago, and I saw the happiest man just walking across the bleachers with a hat on. And just because he was so happy, I absorbed that. So it's interesting to think about our influence on a deeper level, right? Supporting someone, knowing their ins and outs, and also the influence that we have just by a look. Another example of a really small influence, really simple influence, is there's a guy that lives around us. I have no idea who he is, but he likes to run. And he runs with this jersey on. And he is spreading crazy happiness, right? He's just throwing it around like confetti. Whenever people drive by him, he waves really big and he smiles. He's so happy. And one of my boys told me that they could be having the worst day and they will pass him and he will wave like crazy and it will lift them. So much so that one of my children wrote him a note for Christmas. And then it was such a fun, period of time where we were trying to track him down to give him this note and this gift. And one day he ran in the door and he's like, Mom, I saw him. Where's the stuff? I gotta go. Right. And he's so excited to go tell someone else that he's affecting his life. Thank you for just being you. Thank you for being a kind and happy soul and spreading that. William James said, act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. It's interesting to think about the influence that we have at certain periods in our life and the way that it shows up later in life. Okay. So I always try to tell my kids or the girls that I work with, or, just all these different people, especially high school age, hey, be nice to everyone. You never know when someone is going to be a judge of your son that, got in trouble doing whatever he was doing. And then he goes, oh, you're a McKittrick. You never know your influence. One day we moved into the house we lived in before we live in the home that we're in. We were living there for just about a week when we found out that the following weekend, the boys were all going to be going on a scout camp out. And I actually think because we were still swimming in boxes, and I looked at my husband because I knew it was important for my son to get to know the boys in the area, in the neighborhood. And I looked at my husband and I said, you got to go. You got to go with him. Because, we don't know any of his scoutmasters, and we're not just going to send him away with strangers. And then he was like, of course. And even though we're in boxes, I'll just go on this camp out. We'll come back, resume, unpacking and all the business. And then we were contacted by one of his scoutmasters, and we were like, Neil Marchant. Oh my gosh, because we were like, you are the scoutmaster. He was a guy that we went to high school with. And because of our interactions and because of who I knew he was, I felt confident that I could send my son and my husband could stay home and continue to help me unpack. So it's interesting to think that the person that we're being carries with us like forever. I was just talking to a woman that's in one of my courses, and we actually lived in Las Vegas together, and we lived in the same area, the same, neighborhood. And I knew her through church. And she told me that all these years later, she really wanted to participate in the things that I was offering, because that long ago, I called her and cared about what was going on for her. So there's a little bit more to the story, but she found herself saying, what is this? She's like, she's not like my best friend, but I know that she just really cares about me. She called and cared about me. And then later in life, she resonated with that feeling that she had a long time ago, and then wanted to participate in the things that I'm offering, right? In my coaching and so forth. It's so interesting that the way that we're being matters in that moment, but it also is like planting a seed. Jennifer Williamson said, you plant seeds every single day in a world and in others with every thought you think and every action you take. You have influence, you're making a dent in the universe, and you matter in a very real way. And I love the quote by Sharon Salzberg that says, an ordinary favor we do for someone or any compassionate reaching out may seem to be going nowhere at first, but maybe planting a seed we can't see right now. Sometimes we need to just do the best we can and then trust in an unfolding we can't design or ordain. We're not in charge of it. We're not in charge of how all the chips fall, how everything works out. But if we are in charge of who we're being in that moment, and we're doing our best, even if it seems to not be recognized, we're still planting the seed. And you know what? It's still making us a better person, right? I love to think about the sloth. And I think it's interesting that in the entry, I wrote about Jane going to live in Costa Rica for a year. And this last year, my family visited Costa Rica. It was an amazing trip. And we fell in love with, so many things, so many amazing, beautiful things, animals, culture, food, nature, all of these amazing things that we were surrounded by. But one of the things that we really fell in love with was the sloth. And it was interesting to learn about how for a while they had wondered. This is what our guide told us when we toured the national forest, and he was pointing out all of the animals to us. And he said for a while they really wondered the purpose of the sloth. Right? Does this animal have a purpose? It is seriously, to watch this animal move is like, it's like meditation. It's like going to Mystere, in Vegas and watching. Have you ever seen those acts where they're doing the acro yoga and they're just moving so slow? I mean, these sloths can move, I want to say at a snail's pace, but let's go slower. Like, they're insanely slow. And so they were saying, like, what is the purpose of this animal? And then they discovered that the purpose of the sloth, it carries an entire ecosystem on its back, in its fur. And they play a vital role in the dispersal of seeds and the pollination of plants. They are a food source for the, little bugs and animals and worms and stuff that live inside their fur. And they're also a food source for lots of animals like jaguars and eagles and anacondas. So to some, it looks like they're just lazy animals, but they actually have such an important purpose with the rainforest. And then beyond that, they're finding all kinds of things that are medically beneficial from the algae that they're carrying around in their fur. It's interesting that these small little things, these small acts, are much like sometimes the sloth, where we question, what is the purpose? What's the purpose of the sloth? Or what's the purpose of me showing up and being a certain way, being a person who shares a smile, shares our happiness, who is persistent in loving and helping someone else, even if we're not being reciprocated, right? I have a story of someone that I was assigned to watch over in my church. And honestly, like this woman, we would, by the good grace of another woman that I served with, she just kept saying, let's just leave our love notes. Let's leave our love notes over and over and over. And so every single month we would leave her things like on her door. We would call her. She never picked up the phone. It was like, you really wonder. It's like the epitome of really wondering if you're even being received, if you're even making a difference. And then one day I called her expecting to leave a message like I always do. And she answered the phone and I started to stutter. And I was like, hi, I'm Misha. And and she immediately said, I know exactly who you are. You make a huge difference in my life. I would love to go to lunch with you and Carrie. Hello. We totally thought that, it felt like it was a brick wall, right? And sometimes it's difficult to see the difference that we're making. Henry David Thoreau said, we perceive and are affected by changes that are too subtle to be described. That goes with our persistence to just love. It goes with the ability that we have to just make small changes, or to be this undercurrent of something that will completely surprise you, that because we're showing up, the entire ecosystem of the forest is different. You influence others just by being who you are. Just by being a stable person, working on your own stability, right? Because that's something we're constantly like working for. And sometimes it's interesting that sometimes we can feel so stable and then all of a sudden we can like have a hiccup where we feel completely unstable, you know? It's so mind-boggling. And it's all of what happens upstairs in our mind. But it's interesting that the more we work on our own selves, for example, our stability, it gives people around us stability just because you're being that way. I love the quote that says, you radiate whether you like it or not. And vibrationally, what we are affects the world all around us. Every person, everything, every action we take. Socrates said, let him that would move the world first move himself. I love that because we do have such a responsibility in who we're being, in the way that we're showing up. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming or big things that we're thinking about, like that we have to make big changes. But when it becomes evident to us, we make little shifts. So, for example, like when our kids, honestly becoming a parent and having children imitate you, and you know that you're their main influence, and you hear them say something that you say all the time, you go, oh my gosh, this is so evident that they are picking up on who I'm being. It's so incredible to zoom out and continually be able to find the ways that other people are influencing us or have influenced through our life, and then look at ourselves, right? And to look at how we have the power to influence. One of the most simple ways I was ever influenced, this is so simple, but it made a great difference in my life. So I was hired to be a caterer for an event. And this was an event for the college. And so there were all of these like professors and people who were very well educated at the event. And it was just, I remember it being daylight at least, so maybe early evening. And I remember just passing out hors d'oeuvres and drinks and all of those things. And catering wasn't something at the time that I had done a lot. It was just kind of a one-off for the company that I was working for. And they just needed help doing this. And so I was it was a new experience for me. And as I was giving these hors d'oeuvres out, there was a man there who took one of the hors d'oeuvres and he said, "Thank you so much." And the way that he was so genuine. And then he looked at me in the eyes and he said, "You're going to go to school, right? Like you're going to go to college." And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to." And to be honest, like before that, I didn't have my sights necessarily set on college. And this professor, with the energy, the vibration that he was, with his mixed with like his genuine care, right? He was exhibiting that. He said that to me because he cared. He didn't even know who I was. And it was simply just what he said. And I literally like had that in my mind when my friend started talking to me like, "Hey, let's enroll, let's go to school, let's go to here." You know what I mean? And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go." It was the influence of someone I didn't even know that was really very strong in that category for me. I had a couple, it's funny how have you ever heard the idea or the thought that when something comes to you in threes, like listen up, right? So if you ever were told, "Oh, you should read this book," and then you kind of like put a pin in it, right? And then later that week, someone tells you about that same thing, and then again, and you're like, "Okay, maybe I really need to read that." And so I did have a couple of other strong influences pushing me towards college, and not necessarily pushing, because pushing sounds like controlling and somebody else wanting you to do what they want you to do. Okay. But Jane was such an influence for me with college and the ways that she spoke to me about it. And it's part of just what made it happen for me. My parents were not pushing me to do that at all. They didn't push me to do anything, which is probably exactly what I needed from them, right? That I could just be. But the influences around me definitely held a lot of sway over the choices that I made. And I'm sharing all of this with you because I hope it's percolating ideas for you. I hope it's percolating ideas for you to see the ways that you can influence the people around you, and that you truly understand that simply by being who you are is an influence. The act of how you look at someone, the genuine interactions that you have with someone, every single thing that you do really does matter. Just like that quote from William James, which is so brilliant and fabulous. It says, again, we just said it, but I love it. It says, act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. It really makes a difference. And many times we go through life assuming that people already know what they need to know. We forget to go back in time to where we were even just 2 or 3 years ago, let alone 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? And what we didn't know. We forget to offer information to be helpful to people around us. And I get that sometimes it needs to be appropriate, right? It needs to be like appropriate sharing. And I think, again, that just comes down to your motive behind, like, why do you want to share? Why are you trying to share this information? Are you trying to control? Are you trying to love? Are you trying to persuade? Or are you trying to like see the best in someone else, right? And so in the area of assuming that people already know, and going back a few years, there's a story of something that is so, so simple. And I remember I was canning pears, and I remember, this is in the days where my kids were young. The internet was kind of new. It's not like we get so much information from the internet, right? And before the internet, it was a lot of, either learning in books or learning by being taught by someone else, which is still wildly advantageous because not everything you read on the internet is necessarily true either. So we have to be careful about our resources. But I remember canning these pears, and I remember saying to my mom, "Oh my gosh, Mom, I learned the best trick. If you smash up vitamin C tablets and you put them in with your fruit, then it keeps it from going brown." Right? And we know that like Fruit Fresh and all these other things do that too, right? But that was new information to me, and I was so excited about it. And my mom was like, "Yeah, I know that." She's like, "You don't know that, Mish?" Because we assume that you observe, you watch, you do things with me, so you must know everything that I do. And we don't. But I do also know that the person on the other side of the information needs to be ready to receive it, And so that's a bit of a tug of war at some times. My point is, in telling you this, that we might feel small. We might feel that what we have to offer doesn't matter. But just like the sloth, it matters in such a wild, wild way. There's a story of this man who walked his dog every single Sunday around a lake near his house. And week after week, he saw this elderly woman sitting at the edge of the water with a small metal cage next to her. And the man's curiosity finally got the best of him, and he approached the woman one day, and he noticed that the cage was actually a small trap, and she had 3 small turtles in it. And in her lap, there was a 4th turtle that she was carefully wiping down with a sponge. And the man greeted her and said, "If you don't mind my asking, what do you do with these turtles every single week?" She smiled and explained to him that she was cleaning their shells because any algae or scum that builds up on a turtle's shell reduces its ability to absorb heat and slows down their swimming. It also corrodes their shell and weakens it over time. The man was impressed as the woman continued, "I do this every Sunday morning to help the turtles." And the man said, "But most turtles live their entire lives with algae on their shells, right?" And the woman agreed that that was true. And then he replied, "Well, then you are kind to do this, but are you really making a difference if most turtles don't have people around to clean their shells?" And the woman laughed as she looked down at the small turtle in her lap. "Young man, if this little turtle could talk, he would say I'm making all the difference in the world." It's important to remember that the actions of one person can make a world of difference for someone else. Dr. Seuss said, "To the world you may be one person, but to one person you may be the world." I share that with you to help you see and to magnify your great importance. No matter what the scale is, no matter who your influence is. When we zero it down and we see that maybe our influence is with one of our children, or maybe it's a look that we cast at someone else, all of our influence is great. And as we continue to listen to what we're pulled to do and how we're asked to show up, we get to show up in ways that are ours to do, right? Sometimes, and I'm definitely in this category where I can be a person who desires to help and fix so much to the degree where people are not interested in being helped or fixed. And it took me quite a few years to learn how to sit back and just let that go. And on the flip side, some people might need the encouragement to say, "No, you are making a difference. Step up, step in, make a difference, show up." We all are coming at this world from a different point of view. And so just understanding that if we look for ways to influence as we're living our life on purpose, all of those ways will show up for us, no matter what side you have a tendency to show up. I love the quote that says, "Happiness starts beneath your nose." as we've talked about how a simple look can leave people with feelings that cause a ripple effect. And I think it's really vital and important that we do something called, breaking down the walls or melting other people. Like we just need to melt those walls that sometimes come up because of insecurity. Or sometimes we make meaning that other people have, that they've got it all worked out, that they feel very secure. And a lot of times people who we even deem as someone who's got it all worked out, maybe they're actually quiet and shy. Maybe they actually feel so insecure that they don't want to speak up, right? And so there's so many differences between us, and we have sometimes natural walls because of what we think about other people. And so simply putting our arm around other people and letting them know that they're okay with us is such a valuable exchange. It's interesting how sometimes you can be in a situation where you're not 100% comfortable in an exchange. You actually might feel nervous, or the other person might feel nervous. And if you compliment them, it melts those walls. If you put your arm around them, it melts those walls, right? I used to talk about something back when I went to school at ASU. I was on the hip hop dance team, and there was something that was real between people who were on this dance team, and I called it dance face, right? Where we kind of had to appear like too good to like really interact with someone. You kind of had to like, I don't know. It's such a weird phenomenon that, sort of acting pompous or better than someone else puts your value in a different place. And that's not true. It's not true. It's actually very cold. It's very sad. That's a sad world to live in. Right? And if we even think about the ability that if we can break through that wall of dance face, maybe that person would just know that they're okay with us, that they are okay to interact and have exchanges with us. And so inside of the idea of how much influence you have, I would just encourage you that people are not always as they appear. People that might have everything going for them, they might have a lot of hurdles in their life that they're trying to overcome, and they just need to be loved. People who appear, stuck up or pretentious, maybe they're really shy or insecure, or they feel like they have to prove something to be a valuable person. And that persona is actually making them into someone that we deem as stuck up and that we don't want to be around. Sometimes we just need to melt those walls. If you think about the temperature of a person you are as you go through the world, I think that's a great indicator of your ability to melt people's walls. And so if you think about other people in your life who appear to be very cold, and then contrast that with people who appear to be warm, and then you just have a little conversation with yourself about who you want to be. Alfred Lloyd Tennyson said, "I'm a part of all that I have met." And I think that we absorb the people around us, that we take on good attributes, and if we're conscious, we can decide what to take and what to leave. Especially in this circumstance, we can decide, I really love that person who's so warm and inviting and who always has a place for me. And I want to be like that person. And that can be so motivating for us in what we have inside of us to share. Because there's so much inside of there. And there's so much inside of there, especially when we reach out and are not looking to change, but looking to amplify who other people are. Abraham Hicks says, "When you look for another's strengths, even when they are hard to find, your attention to them amplifies them. And in time, because of the spotlight you have shined on those strengths, they become apparent to others as well." Our influence is great. And when we allow love to be the great motivator, the common denominator, it is the ultimate power we have to influence those in our life. You have to stop. Stop being concerned about yourself, your own insecurities, how you appear. You have to let go of that and change your focus to others and to love them. And when you do, you see how much you can pour into them, how much you can bring the people to life that are surrounding you because of your actions, your belief, and your desire to show up for them. If you ever feel nervous about interacting with other people, stop thinking about yourself and think about how you can love the people around you. C. Terry Warner said, "Generally speaking, we influence others most profoundly when we do not seek to change them at all, but simply go about straightforwardly doing the right and loving thing." George Eliot said, "Blessed is the influence of one true loving human soul on another." And that's it. That is the basis for all that I hope to inspire you to do today. Just taking a little glimpse of how much you have the power to show up, even in little tiny ways, whether it's a look, whether it's your energy and your vibration and the way you carry yourself through life, whether it's your desire to do small things that make a big difference for other people, whether you have a desire to look for the strengths of others and just allow yourself to continue to see them so that they become amplified and they help shape the person that you love so much. I hope with my heart that you see the power that you have when you have an awareness of your influence. Going back to Jane just saying, I don't think she even realizes. And I know that there's, again, like I said, no way that she could truly magnify everything and everyone that she influenced. But I know in my heart that she knew that the way that she was showing up helped other people through life. And I know that was a huge part of her desire and her mission. And that's in the background of what we're doing. It's just in the background of who we are. It doesn't have to be that we stop our whole life and our whole living to change our focus and to be someone who is of great influence. It's the way that we are when we're doing life, all of the normal things. People don't always really need you, okay? But you can make a great difference. And with that, I hope you see that you have a great ability to influence the lives around you when you desire to do so. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to remind you that this podcast can grow with your help. If you think that this information is helpful for you, I would love it if you share it with someone, and also if you'll leave a review and subscribe. So really the best things that you can do is to leave a review. So actually type a couple of sentences and then rate the podcast by giving stars, the amount of stars, 1 through 5 that you think that the podcast falls into that category. And then you can also subscribe so that you don't miss up and coming episodes. And also, if you want to support this podcast and help this podcast in moving forward, and you're on Amazon, I don't know about you, I shop on Amazon for so many things. And if you are there shopping, especially for Christmas and the upcoming holiday, stocking stuffers, all of the things that you need to fulfill the wish lists of those in your life, if you're there shopping on Amazon, you can actually support this podcast when you're doing your shopping. So through affiliate links, which don't charge you more for the items that you're buying, they just give a kickback to the person who sent you to Amazon. Okay. So if you go to Amazon and type in amazon.com/shop/my-friend-Misha, then I'll get a kickback, and it will help in moving the podcast forward with all of the things that come with promoting and getting this podcast out to you, to your ears. So thank you so much again for letting me walk through a small part of your journey with you today. I want to leave you with a simple thought of something that I heard someone say when they were, talking about statistics. They were talking about how if you approach someone knowing that 80 to 90% of the time, people are in great need mentally, okay, emotionally. They feel like that they have a crisis inside them. If you approach someone assuming that that is their state, you will be right 80 to 90% of the time. And because of that, I'll restate the quote that I already stated twice in this episode from William James that says, "Act as if what you do makes a difference. It does." Until next time, my friend.